Bible. We will be in Numbers 3, and we'll cover chapter 3 and 4 this morning. We are continuing our study through Numbers. We started back in Genesis, actually, and just continued on through Exodus, and we just finished Leviticus a while back, and now we're at Numbers. And Numbers is a book about the children of Israel wandering in between Egypt and really the wilderness of Sinai and on their way to the promised land. And Numbers chapter 3 and 4 carries on the same theme that we found in chapter 1 and 2 of Numbers, and that is order. We see God ordering everything. He wants Moses to count all of the people, keep a record of this, keep a record of that. And he wants everything to be organized. Now, through that order, through that organization, because God is a God of order, what we are going to see today, through that order, we are going to see the calling or the special calling of a group of people called the Levites. The Levites. Everybody say the Levites. The Levites. This is the tribe of Levi. Now, they're part of Israel. They're part of the children of Israel. But this is one of the tribes from Israel. Okay? And what we saw in chapters 1 and 2 is that he wanted all of the tribes numbered, wanted a record of everybody, the kids, everybody. But then he told Moses, do not count the Levites. And at first it might feel like, wait a minute, we're not counted with the rest of the children of Israel. Well, as we are going to see today, the reason he did that is because he was reserving the children of Levi, that tribe, for something particular, something specific, and we'll talk some more about that as we get into this. Let me give you this works really well when you turn it on. Let me give you, back. This is just for Numbers chapter 3. If you're taking notes, there are three main divisions in Numbers chapter 3. The first is, we'll see real quickly, a record of the family of Aaron. You said, I thought this was about the Levites. It is, but in order to get to the Levites and understand what the Levites are doing, we'll just want to get a quick record of the family of Aaron, because Aaron and his sons, they're the priests, okay? And the Levites will be working in conjunction with them. Then we'll see that God reserves the Levites. He reserves the Levites. We'll see the reserving of the Levites in this chapter. And then lastly, Numbers chapter 3, redemption money, which we'll kind of breeze over. But that is how we broke up Numbers chapter 3. So the first section, verses 1 through 4. Now, again, those of you that are taking notes, in this particular section, you will not see any sub-points, because we'll move through it quickly. It's just to establish who the Levites are. What are the Levites doing? What's going on? And they're working with Aaron, and what's this all about? Verse 1 of Numbers chapter 3 says, now, these are the records of Aaron and Moses. It is believed that Moses was the one that was authoring these accounts. But Aaron was there also. This is a record when the Lord spoke with Moses on Mount Sinai. So that's when this was all recorded. Verse 2, and these are the names of the sons of Aaron. Now, in the event that you're not sure, wait, what's going on? Who is this? Aaron had been chosen by God to be the priest for Israel. Okay? So Aaron and his sons, it's going to name the sons for us in verse 2, Nadab, the firstborn, or the oldest, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the anointed priests, whom he consecrated. That means he set them apart to minister as priests. But then it tells us about Nadab and Abihu. Now, he had four sons. The two oldest, Nadab and Abihu, something happened with them. Verse 4, Nadab and Abihu had died before the Lord when they offered profane fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. So Eleazar, the other two sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, ministered as priests in the presence of Aaron, their father. So it gives us a quick record. These were the priests that were established from the beginning. Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Okay, these were the priests. That was the priestly, the group of priests, all this family. But then he goes on to tell us that Nadab and Abihu, they offered profane fire. What is that? It means this. If you go back and read the story, you find out that Nadab and Abihu, they gave an offering in the wrong way. And it was right after God had just gotten finished establishing this new religion, and this is the way it's got to go. And then they decided, we're just going to do this the way we want to do it. And they went in and they did it a different way than God had prescribed. And so what happened was that God actually took their lives because they had done it wrong. You're not supposed to do this. You're the priest. You're not supposed to be doing this the wrong way. I just finished explaining this to you. So that's what happened to Nadab and Abihu. Now, why did we need to know about the family of Aaron? Well, because of the Levites. Now, let me see if I can explain this and thoroughly confuse you this morning. You have Israel. Israel is all the Jews, all the children of God, all the children of Israel. Okay? Now, within that group, the children of Israel, there are several different tribes within it. And one of the tribes is called the tribe of Levi. The tribe of Levi, or Levi. These would be considered the Levites. Now, what we find here beginning in verse 5 and all the way down to verse 45, we see God reserving these Levites. And it says in verse 5, "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Bring the tribe of Levi near, and present them before Aaron the priest, that they may serve him." Now, let me explain something to you again in case you do not know this. When Moses would write, oftentimes he would write and give the big picture. And then he'll come back to that same subject and give you a little bit more detail. And then sometimes, like we're going to see here, he'll come back to the same subject and give you a little more detail. And then sometimes he'll come back to that same subject, give you a little more detail. And that's what we're going to see in chapter 3 and 4. In chapter 4, it gets even more detailed. And it's good to know those details, obviously, especially if you're the Levites. You want to know, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Okay? But that's how he oftentimes would write. For most of us here with our modern American mind, we think, you know what, if you got to give instructions, just, blab it all out at once and get it over with and let's get on with the show here. But not so with Moses, not so with God. Everything is a process, okay? So in verse 6, he says, bring the tribe of Levi, bring the Levites near, and present them before Aaron the priest, here it is, that they may serve him. So we find out right away that this group of Levites, they're part of the children of Israel, but their task, they've been chosen by God to serve Aaron and Aaron's sons. Now, little quiz right now. Aaron and his sons are what? Anybody know what they are? What's their job? Priests. Right? Priests. Sorry about that. They are priests. Now we find out that the Levites are to serve Aaron and his sons. So the Levites, they've been called or chosen to serve the priests. Okay? Now you might remember the priests, they present offerings, they work inside the tabernacle. Verse 7. And they shall attend to his needs and the needs of the whole congregation before the tabernacle of meeting to do the work of the tabernacle. Okay, they're going to do the work of the tabernacle. Well, wait a minute. Aaron and his sons, the priests, they're doing the work of the tabernacle. So what is all this about? Well, we continue reading on. Verse 8. And they shall attend to all the furnishings of the tabernacle of meeting, and to the needs of the children of Israel to do the work of the tabernacle. So now I told you, now we get a little bit more detail. The Levites are responsible for the furnishings, we're told in verse 8. The furnishings. The furnishings, what was that? Well, it was a table inside the tabernacle. There was a candelabra, or the candlesticks. Were in there. There were different items, different pieces of furniture. Not much, but there were pieces of furniture in there. And now we're finding out that these Levites are responsible for those things. Verse 7. So you shall appoint, what am I reading? Verse 10, Verse 10, so you shall appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall attend to their priesthood. So Aaron and his sons are the priesthood, but the outsider who comes near shall be put to death. You see, God is very serious about everybody having a specific place and a specific station. Verse 11, then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, now behold, I myself, this is God speaking, have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel instead of every firstborn who opens the womb among the children of Israel. What? Now we're finding out that earlier on, God wanted all the firstborn males of all the different children of the families to be dedicated to him. Okay? So, bring it into modern day. We have something called dedicated at church. Anybody know what that means? When you as a little baby you were how many of you were dedicated at church? Anybody in here? Okay, all one of you, two of you. Okay, yep, few of you were. Okay, the rest of you, no, you weren't dedicated. You're not even sure. You're like, I don't know. I was a little baby. Like I don't know what was going on. But what will happen is that families with a young child, son or daughter, will bring that baby to the church, and normally during a church service, Pastor John here will hold that little brat baby and will pray for that baby and present that baby to the Lord. And then he gives the baby back to the parents, and the parents go on their merry little way. Okay? You present that baby to the Lord, but you don't leave that baby here. You know, you don't go, hey, I'm giving this baby to the Lord, so here you go, Pastor John. You know, have fun raising this kid, you know. You don't do that. It's ceremonial. It's Lord, you know, we want this baby to be yours, but then the baby goes back to the parents. Same thing with the children of Israel. God had said, I want the firstborn. Well, what he meant was, I want you to dedicate all of those children. I still want you to raise them, but I want you to dedicate them to me. But what we've just found out with the Levites, now this is different. The Levites, he says, in verse 12, he says, because I'm not actually taking the firstborn from all of Israel, what I'm doing instead is, you dedicate your firstborn to me, ceremonially, but the Levites, those I am taking. Those I'm going to take. Now, how is he going to take them? Is God just going to take, you know, all of these Levites and raise them himself? Well, no, they'll still belong to their parents and to their families, but he's using them for some practical service. Verse 13, because all the firstborn are mine, he says. On the day that I struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. So what he's just done is he's taken them all the way back to when they were still slaves in Egypt. Now that was about a year before this, maybe a little bit longer. And one of the things, you remember the plagues, Pharaoh didn't want to let the people go. So God struck the land of Egypt with different plagues. The water turned to blood. Locusts came. There were all sorts of different things that he did. But the last one that he did was he killed the firstborn of everyone in Egypt who didn't trust him, didn't believe him. He says, on that day, verse 13, on that day that I struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified to myself. Anybody know what it means to sanctify something? Anybody? Anybody? Yes.
Set it apart?
Yes, set it apart. So, when a pie or a cake or a dessert enters your house, some of you might slice a piece, put it in some Tupperware, bury it in the back of the refrigerator, because if you don't, your dad's going to find it. He'll chew through the plastic and eat your dessert, right? You set it apart. It's for something special. Hey, man, don't eat my cake. Don't eat my slice of pie. Leave it alone. It's for something special. I'm taking it with me tomorrow to school, or I'm going to have it after I get home tomorrow after school, or whatever. It's set apart. Same thing. God is saying here, I sanctified, this is God speaking, I sanctified, set apart to myself all the firstborn in Israel, both man and animals. They shall be mine. I am the Lord. They're to be dedicated to me. Okay? So the first thing that he does is he says, I'm reserving the Levites for service. They're going to be serving. And they're going to be serving Aaron and his sons specifically. Now what he does beginning in verse 14 is he tells them, he says, I'm reserving the Levites, and each of them has a familial duty. That's a fancy word for family duty. Each family had a duty. Verse 14. Then the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, saying, number the children of Levi. There it is. Number the children of Levi by their fathers' houses, by their families. You shall number every male from a month old and above. So Moses numbered them according to the word of the Lord as he was commanded. Now here it is, verse 17. These were the sons of Levi by their names. Levi had these three sons, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Okay? And these are the names of the sons of Gershon. And so what it's going to do there in the following verses is that it will give us the family, it'll give us a quick family history of each of these. So look at this. You got the children of Israel. You got 12 tribes throughout the children of it, 12 different tribes. One of the tribes is Levi. And he said, I want Levi for something special. Sets them apart. Then he goes over to the tribe of Levi. Now this man Levi, he's long gone. He's been dead for a long time. Okay? But his family is still called the tribe of Levi because they came from Levi. Okay? Now he takes this group, separates them, the tribe of Levi. And he says, all right, the family of Levi. Levi had three sons. Gershon was one son. Kohath was another one of Levi's son. And then there was Merari, was his third son. Okay? So he's keeping track of all of these different family members. And what he's going to do is he's going to give each of them different duties. Look at verse 25. Let's skip. Let's skip a little bit. Are we allowed to skip in the Bible? We're doing it, man. We're doing it. We're going to be daring this morning, right? Verse 25. The duties of the children of Gershon in the tabernacle of meeting included the tabernacle, the tent with its covering, the screen for the door of the tabernacle of meeting, the screen for the door of the court, the hangings of the court, which are around the tabernacle and the altar, and their cords according to all the work relating to them. Okay? What about the guy Kohath, the other son Kohath? Look at Kohath. Kohath in verse 31. The children of Kohath, or the family of Kohath, their duty included the ark. All they needed to do was keep it away from Indiana Jones, okay? And then there was the table, the lampstand, the altars, the utensils of the sanctuary with which they ministered, the screen, and all the work relating to them. So the family of Kohath, they had this specific job. What about that son, Merari? Let's look at Merari. In verse 36, and the appointed duty of the children of Merari included the boards of the tabernacle, its bars, its pillars, its sockets, its utensils, all the work relating to them, and the pillars of the court all around, and their sockets, their pegs, and their cords. So basically what God is doing is he's telling the tribe of Levi, all right, Gershon and all of your family, you're in charge of this portion. And Kohath, you and your family, you're in charge of this portion of the tabernacle. And then he says to the last one, what was his name again? Merari. Merari, you're in charge of these items. So each part of the family had different items that they were responsible for. Okay? Again, remember I told you at the beginning of all of this? Order. God is ordering everything. In chapters 1 and 2, he ordered all the other tribes. I want you to count everybody and organize everyone. Even gave them specific camping spots. He's going to do the same thing with these guys. But they have been pulled out of the rest of Israel and set apart for this service. They're to take care of all the different portions of the tabernacle. Now, it's strange for us because we spent so much time throughout Leviticus talking about Aaron and his sons. And they, all these different things prescribed. Well, they're going to offer this and do this and do this. All these things, the Aaron and his sons, their entire lives consisted of serving in the tabernacle. But now we hear about this group of Levites, these people who are in charge of all these different portions of the tabernacle. So what's going on? Well, it will become clear as we continue reading on and even into chapter 4, and we'll read a little bit of chapter 4. But basically what he's doing is he's saying, listen, Aaron and his sons are the priests. They offer things on the altar, all the different animals. They take care of the showbread inside of the tabernacle, and there's candles and there's oil and all those different things. But what we find out as we continue reading on is that this group of Levites, they were responsible for transporting everything. They were responsible for the care of these items. And it gets quite detailed. But look at verse 39. All who were numbered of the Levites, whom Moses and Aaron numbered at the commandment of the Lord, by their families, all the males from a month old and above were 22,000. So Levites, sometimes it's like you're reading, you feel like, okay, there's probably like 20 Levites. I mean, you kind of look at all the different items. Well, this family, Kohath was responsible for these items. There's, 5, 6, maybe 10 things there. And, there's Merari, and he was responsible for these 10 or 12 things. Yeah, there's probably, maybe there's 20 or 50 Levites. And then you find out there's 22,000, and that's just males from a month old and older. But it was the males that were going to be doing these jobs. And so they wanted them counted 22,000. Now, 22,000, that's a lot of people to be taking care of these items. There weren't that many items in the tabernacle. We've talked about it before. You imagine the tabernacle was probably something about the size of this room. It really wasn't that big, okay? And 22,000 people to carry all this stuff? Well, a lot of them were babies. They were a month old, or, they were older, but they were still too young to really help with anything. So you had some of the older ones, but any of these males, they probably would rotate through, and okay, this time it's your turn, and this time it's your turn, or whatever. And so no doubt they would have had that all organized, but 22,000 of them. And God says, I'm taking you and I'm using you for this specific task. Now, down in verse 40, we move from service to familial duties to the firstborn. And in verse 40, he tells us, Then the Lord said to Moses, Number all the firstborn males of the children of Israel from a month old and above. Take the number of their names. Verse 41, You shall take the Levites for me, God says. I am the Lord. Instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel and the livestock of the Levites, instead of all the firstborn among the livestock and the children of Israel. So in other words, he says, I'm going to use the Levites, and not only that, I'm also going to use their animals. And the people and the animals that belong to the Levites, they will be at the disposal of Aaron and his sons. In other words, Aaron and his sons may decide how they want to use this group of Levites. Okay? Now, God's going to give them some specifics, but in other things, Aaron and his sons would be able to utilize them. They would be a help to Aaron and his sons. Okay? Skip with me down. Well, in verse 46, again, we won't get any subpoints in here, but just so you know, for those of you that take notes and you like to break up the chapter, maybe for personal reading, there is redemption money that is discussed in verses 46 through 51. And that redemption money is money that God wants to collect from the children of Israel. And as you read through it, you find that it's because there's a number of the children of Israel, and then there's a number of the Levites, and the number is a little bit different. And so he says, in order to pay for this group, I want you to collect this money, and he wants to collect that money. So we move on into chapter 4, and we'll move quickly through this. And I'm just going to go ahead and put up here the first one. Numbers chapter 4, what we find out about the Levites. We're still talking about the Levites. is that the Levites' main responsibility was carrying things. And you go, what? Like that's their big job? To carry stuff? Yeah, that was their big job. Aaron and his sons were responsible for offerings, ministering to the people, ministering to God. It's a big deal. There's potentially 2.5 million people in this camp. So you can imagine that offerings were probably constant. Day and night they're coming. So Aaron and his sons are busy doing that. Now, can you imagine? I don't know if you've ever thought about this. Aaron and his sons were slaughtering animals and offering them to the Lord. Imagine what their clothing must have looked like at the end of the day. It is hard for some of us to eat a sandwich without staining our clothes. Anybody like that? Like, man, I don't know how. Like, every time I eat, I stain my clothes. I seem to do that. You know, I did that. We were at the conference yesterday, and I don't know. I was eating my sandwich. I looked down. I got a stain on my pants. Like, where'd that come from? I don't know. I'm kind of that way. It's like I start eating. I try to be real careful and real neat, you know, but then I always seem to drop something. But imagine these priests. These priests are ministering all day long. They probably were completely drenched in blood by the end of the day, you might imagine. So they've got a hard job. This is a difficult job. So what God does is he gives them the Levites to assist them. But assist them with what? Well, look at verse 2 of Numbers chapter 4. Take a census of the sons of Kohath from among the children of Levi. Okay, so we're going to start counting people again. And he says in verse 3, from 30 years old and above, even to 50, all who enter the service to do the work in the tabernacle of meeting. So we find out that they are going to be using the Levites who are 30 years old to 50 years old. Because from 30 to 50, tough, strong, good looking. I don't know if that's true or not, but I threw that in there. From 30 to 50, those are the ones that are going to specifically be serving. But what are they doing? What exactly are they doing? I am so glad that you asked. Look at verse 5. When the camp prepares to journey. Now this tabernacle, everybody's living in tents, including God. He's got a tent at the center of the camp. And when God is ready to move, the children of Israel, they got to pack up and they got to go. So if he starts to move, verse 5, when the camp prepares to journey. They do not just decide that on their own. It's as God moves, then they go, oh look, God's moving. We got to pack up our things and we got to move. Well, when that happens, somebody has got to be responsible for transporting the tabernacle and all of the items. I mean, Aaron has only got 2 sons. There's no way they can carry everything. Even if he had all 4 of his sons, if Nadab and Abihu had not failed, even if they were around. So there's 5 of them. They're not going to be able to carry everything. So what God has done is he's given them the Levites, and that is what the Levites are responsible for doing. Look at verse 5. When the camp prepares to journey. Here's how this is going to work. Aaron and his sons shall come, and they shall take down the covering veil and cover the ark of the testimony with it. I'm going to read that one more time, and then I'm going to ask you a trick question. All right? Here it is, verse 5. When the camp prepares to journey, Aaron and his sons shall come, and they shall take down the covering veil and cover the ark of the testimony with it. Who? Here it is. You ready? Who is doing the covering? Let me read it for you one more time, verse 4.
Aaron and his sons?
Yes, Aaron and his sons. That's what it says there in verse 5. Thank you very much. Aaron and his sons. So when it's time to journey, Aaron and his sons are responsible for packing everything up that pertains to the tabernacle. They've got to take this this curtain down, and they're gonna wrap these items. It goes on to tell us in verse 6. Then they shall put on it a covering of badger skins, and spread over that a cloth entirely of blue. Listen, I'm going to ask you another question here in verse 6. And they shall insert its poles. What do you think the poles are for? Anybody want to take a wild guess? Anybody feeling daring right now? And you're just like, you know what? I'm going to take a guess, man. I'm going to put my life on the line, and I'm going to guess as to what these poles are for. Anybody? Kirsten. To carry it. Wrong. No, I'm just kidding. It's right. That's totally right. Yes, it was to carry it. It was to carry. See what happens when you're daring? Good job, Kirsten. Yeah. To carry. That's what poles are for carrying things. So this is the pattern. The priests were responsible for wrapping everything up, inserting these poles. Guess who's going to carry those things? Anybody? Yes. Was that Kirsten again? Who was that? No? Melissa. Good job. Good job. Something about that second row. That's where it's at. Okay? So the Levites were responsible for carrying things. He goes on to explain it. We won't read through all of these because you're going to get the pattern here in just a moment. Verse 7. On the table of showbread. They had a table there for something called showbread. They shall spread a blue cloth. Put on it the dishes, the pans, the bowls, the pitchers for pouring, and the showbread shall be on it. And they shall spread, in verse 8, over them a scarlet cloth, and cover the same with a covering of badger skins, and they shall insert its poles, because poles are for what?
Carrying.
Yes, for carrying. So Aaron and the priests were responsible for packing everything up. Hey, we're getting ready to leave. God is on the move. We can see the pillar of smoke or the pillar of fire, the cloud or the fire, and it's time to go. God's moving. So Aaron and his sons knew, okay, we got to let's break it down. Let's go. And they would break it all down, and they would wrap everything up, and they would insert the poles, and it goes through and it tells us all the different parts of the tabernacle all through these verses. Look at verse 15. And when Aaron and his sons have finished covering the sanctuary, that means packing, and all the furnishings of the sanctuary, when the camp is set to go, then the sons of Kohath shall come to carry them. But they shall not touch any holy thing, lest they die. These are the things in the tabernacle of meeting which the sons of Kohath are to carry. So we find out that they are not supposed to touch the items themselves. They're not allowed to go in and, hey, let me just help you pack up this showbread real quick. Because if they did that, God says if you do that, you'll die. You cannot do that. Only the priests may handle these items. What did I say at the beginning? That these chapters are showing us order. God is a God of order. He's got everything ordered. Chapter 1 and 2, order. Chapter 3 and 4, ordering the Levites and the things of the tabernacle. Everything has its place. God is particular. That's a good thing. I like specific instructions. I like specific instructions. I like when, I have a boss or some sort of supervisor, somebody that's over me and tells me, listen, I want this job done, and here's how I want you to do it. I like that because I don't want to guess about these things. I want to do a good job. I want to be pleasing to the person that I'm working for. So tell me exactly what you want, and I'll do that. Now, sometimes the boss or whoever's in charge, maybe sometimes they don't care. It doesn't matter. Just, the wall needs to be painted white. Just paint it. It's not a big deal. However you want to do it. Okay, well, I can figure that out. But if they want some specifics, I want to know. I want to know. And God is giving specifics here. It's very important that they understand these things, especially if death is a possibility. I want to know. I don't want to go touching the showbread. Oh, that's a neat piece of bread. Oh, dead, gone. That's it. I don't want to do that. I want to know what am I supposed to touch, what am I not supposed to touch, and God tells them that. I like that. I like that. I like that God didn't just allow them to make some mistakes here. Like, hey, you guys are going to help Aaron and his sons. The Levites go in, pick up, the candlesticks or something, and all of a sudden they croak. What happened? God says, well, learned your lesson. But you won't do that again. He didn't do that. He told them ahead of time, you're not to touch these things. The priest can touch them. You cannot touch them. You can carry, but that's it. In verse 10, he says the appointed duty of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, is the oil for the light. He had his specific tasks that he was to do also. In verse 20, but they shall not, speaking about the Levites, they shall not go in to watch while the holy things are being covered, lest they die. Now we find out that not only could they touch those things, or they could not, but they also could not even go in and watch these things being packed. They had to just wait. Once Aaron and his sons were done packing everything, they would call the Levites over. Here they come, they grab everything, and they walk and follow wherever God was leading. At beginning in verse 21, we have the duties of the sons of Gershon. Same type of thing, just different items. In verse 29, we get the duties of the sons of Merari. Again, same process, just different items. Beginning in verse 34, there's this counting. Let me put it up there. Carrying and then counting. And Moses, Aaron, and the leaders of the congregation numbered the sons of the Kohathites. That's still part of the tribe of Levi, but that's the son Kohath, by their families and by their father's house. And it gives us the number of them there in verse 38. They numbered the sons of Gershon, and they did the same thing with the sons of Merari in verse 42. Everybody that was 30 years old and above, even to 50, that were going to work in the tabernacle. Everybody was numbered. They had a record. Again, order. Everything had its place. Every person had their task. In verse 49, according to the commandment of the Lord, they were numbered by the hand of Moses, each according to his service and according to his task. Thus they were numbered by him as the Lord commanded Moses. Now, let me ask you a few questions as we finish. The Levites were called to a specific task. Who can tell me why the Levites were chosen? That is correct. We do not know. We are never told why they are chosen. Never told why they're chosen. How about this? Why did God choose the Levites at that time? I mean, they've been out of Egypt for a little over a year now. It's correct. We do not know. There are some valuable lessons for you and I here about God's calling. 4 things as we finish up. Number 1, it is this, that God called the Levites. It was God's calling. The Levites did not choose to serve God in this way. They did not say, hey, God, we decided that we should be helping out Aaron and his sons. There's no talk of that. There's no discussion. That's not how it went. It was God's choosing, God's calling. And there's no reason given. It's just God decided that that's what he wanted to do, so he did it. What's the lesson? The lesson is this, that there are some of us in here who are concerned about knowing what God's calling is for my life. Like, what does God want me to do? I want him to give me some direction. Like, I'm in high school. Does he want me to go to college? Does he want me to start working? What does he want me to do? And we're not sure what God's calling is for our lives. Well, listen, that is God's business, when and why he's going to call you and what he's going to call you to. That's for God to decide. It was God who called the Levites to service. But here's the second thing that we learn. It was in his time. We do not know why God chose this moment, but he did. And it may be that you're feeling this afternoon, family, you might be feeling like, hey man, I just really want to serve God, and I really want to know what my calling is. And you guys are thinking, I'm young, I'm healthy, and I just want to give it all to the Lord. And certainly that's what all of us want. We want to live, we want to give our all to the Lord. But you may still be waiting for God to tell you specifically what he wants you to do. That's his prerogative. That's for him to decide when he wants to share that with you. Now, I think it's okay to be praying and asking God, what is your calling for my life? What do you want me to do? I think that's okay to ask that. But in the end, you need to wait for God. And there are some things that you can do in the meantime. What were the Levites doing before they were called? Does anybody know what the Levites were doing before they were called to this specific task? Anybody? They were just following God. Wherever God went, that's where they went. God went to Mount Sinai, they went to Sinai and waited. They just went, wherever God was going, that's where they went. It's a good lesson for you and I. If we're not sure where God is calling us to yet, just go wherever God is. Where's God at? Well, I know God is in the Word. When I'm reading the Word, I know God's there. At church, I can go there and I can encounter God. God's there. He's ministering. When I'm worshiping, and you could be worshiping at church, or you could be worshiping in the bathroom at your house. It could be anywhere. But what you want to do is you want to just keep your focus on the Lord for now. You're not sure exactly what God has for you. That's okay. Don't get frustrated. Don't get bummed out. Just, okay, Lord, that's all right. I'll just keep serving you and doing, worshiping and studying your word and going to church and fellowshipping and helping out wherever I can. And in his time, he'll share with you. But what about the third thing? The third thing is this, that it was according to his own will. And so when God calls me, it will be according to his own will, not my will. It's not what I want. I did not choose to be a youth pastor. That was not my choice. I had no desire to be a pastor. That was not my choice. It was according to his will. And what's the fourth and last thing? And that is this, is that God's calling, it's for his purpose. It was God that decided what they would do. And family, God operates the same way. When he is ready to tap you and say, okay, I'm going to use you for this specific purpose, that's God's doing. You want to be called by God. You don't want to be called by yourself. You want to be called by God. You want to wait for God's timing. I know it gets frustrating. It's frustrating for me. God takes entirely too long for me, for my time schedule. And then I come to my senses and realize, wait a minute, that's really dumb. I don't have a time schedule outside of God. God's running the show here. But what about his will? Well, it's according to his own will. It's not according to my will. It's not according to what I want to do. And then lastly, he reserves these people, and he will reserve me for his purpose. Not for my purpose. God's not going to call me to go and glorify myself. Sometimes you'll watch your favorite awards show, with your favorite musician. And they will get up on that stage and, well, first of all, I'd like to thank God. And I'm thinking, thank God for what? Thank God that he gave me the ability to make all this nasty music with all of my, sexual innuendos and all of the, cussing in my music. What are you thanking God? God did not do that. What are you talking about? God did not gift you so that you could go out and glorify yourself. No, when God calls us, it's for his purpose to serve him in whatever capacity he decides. And it might be to be a pastor, or it might be an assistant pastor. That's what I am, an assistant pastor. Pastor John can't be out here to teach the high school students, so he asked me to assist him and teach high school. You might be an assistant. It's a good thing. I like assisting. In 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 9, you can turn there if you want, but it's just one verse, and I'm going to read it real quickly. 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 9. Paul was speaking about God. And he says, God, in the previous verse, who has saved us and called us with a holy calling. God does it, not me. And then Paul went on to say, not according to our works. God didn't choose me because of my works. Why did he choose me? But according to his own purpose and grace. It was God's the one that saved me. I didn't save myself. I didn't do some good work, and God saw me and go, oh, you know what? I really like the way Chris operates. I'm going to choose him. I need him on my team. Okay? I was, like many of you, when I was in high school, I was deathly afraid of standing up in front of the class and sharing an oral report. No, I used to ditch. I wasn't saved. Don't go home and tell your parents, oh, I can ditch. Pastor Chris used to ditch. I was not a Christian at the time. And I used to just ditch because I was like, I'm not standing up in front of anybody. And then God chose me and put me up in front of people. It's what he decides. It's for his purpose. But he says, but according to his own purpose and grace, which was given to us in Christ Jesus before time began. God decided to save us before time began. But he also, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, we also know that we were created for good works, which God prepared beforehand, yeah, it's the same thing. Before I was around, God decided those things. So it's God who does the calling. Now listen, family, maybe you're thinking, I don't know what God's calling is for my life. I want to know, but I don't know. And, what should I do? Here's what you should do. You should continue to do the things that you're doing right now. Like attending church is a good thing. But reading the Word, not just here, but on your own, is a good thing. Looking for opportunities to serve wherever you can. Maybe it's in here. Maybe it's some other place. But looking for things to serve, or places to serve, things to do. And just continue to keep your eyes on the Lord and allow him, when he's ready, to give you his calling. He'll do it when he's ready, in his time, according to his will, for his purpose. Okay? Yeah? Father, thank you so much.